Hello, if you're new here, my name's Roisin. Welcome to my channel. That is Winnie. Today I'm going to be looking back on 2024 and forward to 2025 to let you know what is going on this channel with my reading, with my videos, and all that stuff. So let's go right ahead and look back at 2024. 2024 was an odd reading year for me. I read the fewest books I've ever read since I started on YouTube 5 years ago now. I read 75 books, which is a lot for most people, but compared to my previous years where I have always got over 100, it was fewer. And also I felt like the quality of them was fewer too, in terms of my enjoyment anyway. That is something that I want to change going forward. I want to try and read more books, and also hopefully better ones. So as I was saying, I had a bad year in terms of the quality of the books. I gave no books 5 stars this year. I don't really talk about stars on this channel because I don't think they're particularly helpful for reviewing books, but I do give them on Storygraph, which is linked in the description if you want to go and follow me over there, to try and keep track of my reading and how it's going for information like this. And there wasn't a single book that I read that I felt comfortable giving 5 stars to. So if you have seen my favourites books of the year, or if you haven't, go out and check them out and recommend me some books that you think I will like 5 stars based on my taste. I'll also leave linked in the cards above a video about things I love in books, because I definitely need some recommendations. These are the 5 books that I gave 4.5 stars, so my top 5 books of the year, and these are the 13 books that I gave 4 stars. Definitely some really good books on there, but 18 out of 75 being over 4 stars is not really a great endorsement of my reading. It's less than a third, and I would prefer that to be higher. And this is just a fun graphic of all of the countries that I read from. As you may know, I used to do a read around the world challenge. I'll leave the playlist linked in the cards above. But I haven't done that in a while, so this isn't as good as it was before either. But I always like to keep track of that. Reading from different cultures is one of my favourite things to do. Here you can see that 26 of the books I read this year were digital, 31% in print, and 43% in audio. So definitely I had a clear preference for audio this year. I also had a clear preference for knitting this year, and those two hobbies really do go hand in hand. But I think that is also something going forward that I would like to change. Whilst I do really love audiobooks, I think I want to stop reading audiobooks with narrators I don't love and move on to reading those books physically, because whilst I think the narrator can be neutral or even positive in your experience of reading a book, sometimes they can definitely make the experience worse. There is a book that I have listened to very, very recently. I'm currently listening to Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors, and I'm really trying hard to see past the audiobook narrator for this one because I really am not enjoying her style. This one is what I was expecting. 7% of the books I read this year were over 500 pages, 38% were under 300 pages, and 55% were between 300 and 500 pages, which is fairly standard for me. I tend to read medium-sized books. I don't go for loads of small ones. I did used to host the Big Book Club, which pushed up my numbers of big books a little bit, but it stopped this year. So I have lost that reason for reading such big books. This is Storygraph's list of my genres. I don't always agree with these Storygraph genres. I think they're not always perfect in terms of how they line up. Some of them are left off, like literary historical fiction will often just be historical, or some stuff just gets contemporary, and LGBTQ isn't really a genre. But as you can see, far and away, the most books I read this year were literary fiction. That's 42 books, so more than half of my reading. So that's everything that I wanted to cover from last year. I don't think any of the other stats are particularly interesting, but if there are any stats you would like to know about my year last year, do let me know in the comments down below, and I'll try to respond to you. So I also asked for some questions to see if anyone had any questions for me, and then I also went through the tag for 2024 review tag or something like that. I will leave the original in the description down below for some questions to see if there were any that I felt like answering. Someone asked what my favourite knitting pattern was. As you can say, as I mentioned, I do a lot of knitting. I actually knitted this cardigan that I am wearing right now. It does up at the back. But my favourite knitting pattern, I think, was this one, which is what I knitted my mum for Christmas. And the person who made it also has a jumper and a cardigan in a similar style, or in the same like colour work pattern. And I think I might end up knitting one of those. I really enjoy colour work, which I thought was going to be a lot harder than it is, but I found it fairly straightforward. Now, granted, I was just knitting a tube, and perhaps when you have to think about shaping and tension, I will struggle a bit more. But I definitely find that I prefer that to just knitting rows and rows of stocking stitch. Someone asked, in what ways did reading the books you did change you as a person, and in what ways do you see that? That's a really big question to answer now, so I might consider making a video about that, maybe a short video. I'm not really sure. I often see people talking about the books that change their life, so maybe I will combine an answer to that question in with some of the books that I feel changed my life. Although I'm not sure that I am necessarily a person for whom books have changed my life. Engaging critically with books is something that I enjoy, and I have always been someone who finds analysing media, particularly literature, enjoyable, and something I am fairly good at. But I think I need more time to think about that. So I may come back to you with a whole video answering that question. Someone asked, would I consider doing more book adaptation reviews? They really enjoyed my video about Persuasion, which I will leave linked in the cards above. That really depends what adaptations come out. I'm not going to do an adaptation review of an adaptation where I haven't read the book, because then I'm just doing a film review. And I also am not going to do an adaptation review that I don't feel like I have a lot to say about. I did also do one about the Muppets Christmas Carol that like no one has seen, so that is up there if you want to go and check that one out. Yeah, I guess it depends what comes out. So if there are any particularly you would like me to talk about, you can leave them in the comments down below. I have one about Jane Austen adaptations in general as well, that I will leave it in the cards above if there's still room up there, or in the description if there's not. So that kind of covers my thoughts about a lot of Austen adaptations, like the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, for example. Pride and Prejudice is a comedy and a social satire, not a sweeping romance. She is, in fact, satirising the exact kind of sweeping romance that Joe Wright made. If there is anything you would like me to talk about, as I said, let me know in the comments down below. And someone also asked, will I be continuing with the Big Book Club in 2025? I've already mentioned this. No, I will not be continuing with the Big Book Club. I've really enjoyed it, particularly enjoyed meeting and talking about books with some of my fellow booktubers. That was a really great experience for me. I think all of them were great, the live shows, and I will leave the playlist somewhere where you can access it if you want to go and check them out. But I don't think I was particularly good at running a book club in terms of outside of the live shows, the other stuff, the Discord and that wasn't really something I was particularly good at or spent a lot of time doing. Picking the books and finding people to talk about them, it was something that I don't think I have like the bandwidth to be doing. So if someone else would like to take up the mantle and do a Big Book Club, they could feel free to go ahead, but I don't think I will be continuing it at this time. A book that lived up to the hype and a book that did not live up to the hype this year. So for me, a book that lived up to the hype was Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, of course, one of the most hyped books of the year. I really, really loved it. I know not everybody did. There was quite a change in style for Rooney, but I'm enjoying the way that she is going, and her reduction of politics to the interpersonal, I think, is something that I really enjoy in fiction. So I'm definitely going to be looking forward to whatever she comes out with next. And then one that didn't live up to the hype, Emily Henry didn't live up to the hype for me, but I don't think I can blame Emily Henry for that because I'm not a super into romance girly. There are a couple of romance writers that I like and the rest of them I don't. So having a bad time with romance is not unusual for me. Orbital by Samantha Harvey won the Booker Prize. Beanie, God, does anyone else's cat steal their yarn? Orbital by Samantha Harvey won the Booker Prize, and I thought it was the worst book on that long list. And so I was very, very disappointed in that. If you want to see my full thoughts, I, again, have a vlog where I read the entire long list up here or in the description, wherever there is space, you may go and seek that out. And then the final the final part about 2024 is the best written book that I read last year. Of course, Intermezzo I thought was really well written. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrel by Susanna Clarke I thought did what it was doing perfectly, melding fantasy and historical fiction set in the early 19th century, doing a parody of British literature of that time period, or specifically doing a parody of like high Victorian historical fiction set in the Napoleonic Wars. I thought that the way that it did that style was really, really good, really powerful, and I thought that the sort of light, gentle satire of characters like this, the kind of combination of Austonian, Dickensian kind of vibes, I thought worked really well. Looking back now, there's so many books that I forgot I even read this year. Glorious Exploits by Ferdia Lennon was also really interestingly written. It's written in like vernacular Hiberno English, but set in Syracuse during the Athenian-Syracusan Wars, and so it's kind of challenging that idea of what the classics are and how you write people who are not speaking English when you're writing English. So obviously, like, these Syracusans are speaking Greek, so why do they have to be translated into like classical English, like RP, for want of a better word, standard English, that's the word? Why can't you use vernacular for these people who were working class people who would have been speaking with an accent or in a dialect different to the Athenians? The Athenians and the Syracusans would have spoken differently from one another, and I just thought that was a really interesting, clever way to both talk about that idea and to make the characters feel more vibrant and alive. Okay, so now we are looking forward to 2025, both in terms of reading and on this channel. I have some plans and things I want to do. So one of those things that I feel nervous making an announcement about, because what if I don't live up to it? What if I can't manage it? I'm going to attempt to do 10 video essays on this channel this year. I've said 10, not 12, because I want to give myself a little space, but even 10 feels quite daunting because they are a lot of work, but I do really enjoy doing them, and I feel like they are really actually interesting and engaging for the audience, and something that I'm like giving something to the audience, something of value, rather than something easy. Not that I'm going to stop doing the easy videos, but I will only be putting out one video a week in order to make space for some of these more in-depth, research-heavy videos. So I'm aiming for that. I have ideas for the first 4 video essays already, but if you have any ideas for anything you would like me to talk about, dive into in depth, leave them in the comments down below. I'm obviously only going to make things when I feel like I have something to say. I always start from the perspective of having an argument, and then like having an argument I want to make, and then doing the research from there, rather than from just a topic. So I will need to have a perspective in order to feel like it's worthwhile. I mean, like, why would anyone want to hear from me if I don't have a perspective? But that is the aim for next year, 10 video essays. I'm quite nervous, but hopefully it will work out okay. Then other things you can expect to see from me, or not see from me. I am traveling again this year, so I will be going to Singapore, New Zealand and Seoul in South Korea. So there should be several travel vlogs from that time. This year, 2024 I went to Mexico, 2023 it was Peru. This year I'm going to Singapore, Korea and New Zealand, because I know someone getting married in New Zealand, and when you go actually to the other side of the world, you've got to fit in some other places too. Very, very excited to go to Seoul. It's been on my bucket list for years, so I am really pleased to be finally making it there, and hopefully you will enjoy the vlogs made from those places. I'm also, as I said, going to try and read more. I am aiming for 100 books again this year. I am also planning to reread 8 books. I never reread books, and I feel like that is something that I am missing out, kind of the depth of knowledge of a book, kind of the exploration of things you missed, and to see things in a different light once you already know how the plot pans out. So I've picked 8 favourites that I plan to reread. I'll put them on the screen here. and they will count. I'm going to count them in my 100 books because I normally don't count rereads. I also plan to do fewer prizes and challenges. I may not read any of the Women's Prize this year or any of the Booker unless any of them really stand out to me. I've decided to stop trying to read prize lists, except for the one that I am currently in the middle of reading, which you should see next week, maybe the week after. Depends how soon I finish those books. But this list was from 2024, so I'm counting it as a hangover from that year. And I didn't say none, I just said fewer. I also think this year might be my year of motherhood books about motherhood. Last year, 2024, accidentally became my reading books about grief year. I read a lot of different books about grief, and I enjoyed reading books that were speaking to one another. And I think that that's something that I would like to do again this year. That doesn't mean that all the books I'm going to read are about motherhood, definitely not. That would be an easy way to get far too burnt out on a subject, but I think I am going to make an effort to read some of the books on my shelf, some of the recommendations that revolve around the idea of motherhood or not motherhood. I think that topic has been biting at the sides of my reading recommendations for such a long time, and I have been reluctant to read books about that topic, but I think I'm going to try and dive in this year. I have also made myself a little bingo board, including those goals and some of the other things I am looking forward to doing this year, hopefully, or not doing, things to change about my reading. Essentially what I'm trying to do is actually read 5-star books. That is my goal of this year, to read books that I really, really love, and so I'm trying to shape my reading around that. Especially after having such a bad reading year in 2024, I am hoping that to do better in 2025. I feel like it's going to be a good year. I can feel it. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you have anything to add, if you have any reading goals of your own, I would love to hear from you. As I said at the beginning, my name's Roisin. If you are new here, welcome. I will see you again very soon. Bye bye.